Above the din of the shield wall, where steel rings against steel and the fates of kingdoms are decided, a different kind of judgment unfolds. They are not angels of mercy, nor are they demons of destruction. They are the Valkyries, the choosers of the slain. On winged steeds that ride the storm clouds, they descend upon the fields of human conflict, their gaze passing over the chaos to find the sparks of true valor. To die in battle is one thing, but to be chosen by a Valkyrie is another entirely. It is a mark of ultimate honor, a ticket to an afterlife of feasting and glory in the golden halls of Valhalla, awaiting the final battle of Ragnarök. They are the beautiful, terrifying arbiters of a warrior's destiny, handmaidens of the All-Father Odin himself. But who were these warrior women of myth? Were they divine beings, weavers of fate, or the echoes of real shieldmaidens whose stories became legend? Their tale is one of power, destiny, and the ultimate meaning of a worthy end. From the mist-shrouded fjords and wind-battered coasts of Scandinavia, a unique worldview was forged. It was a world shaped by harsh realities, unforgiving winters, scarce resources, and the constant threat of conflict. For the people known as the Norsemen, life was a struggle, and honor was paramount. In this culture, it was not how long one lived that mattered most, but how one faced their end. To fall in battle was not a tragedy, but the highest achievement, a testament to a life lived with courage. It was this deep-seated belief that gave rise to one of mythology's most powerful and enigmatic figures, the Valkyrie. They were not goddesses in the traditional sense, nor were they merely spirits. They were something more, a bridge between the mortal world and the divine, their presence felt on every field of strife. Imagine a warrior standing on the precipice of his final moment. He looks not to the ground, but to the sky, searching for a sign. It is said that in the swirling clouds above the fray, these figures could be seen, riding on steeds as swift as the storm. They were the choosers of the slain. Their arrival signaled that a warrior's fate was sealed, his valor recognized. This was not a moment of fear, but of profound validation. To be chosen was to be deemed worthy, to have your entire life struggle affirmed by the gods themselves. The name Valkyrie itself translates to chooser of those who have fallen, a title that encapsulates their solemn duty. They were the arbiters of glory, the silent observers whose judgment determined a warrior's eternity. But who were these formidable women? Were they simply messengers carrying out divine commands, or did they possess a will of their own? The earliest sagas and poems paint a picture not of gentle guides, but of fearsome and formidable beings, as much a part of the battle as the warriors themselves. Their story is woven into the very fabric of the Norse cosmos, a tale of destiny, honor, and the ultimate reward for a life of bravery. To understand the Valkyries is to understand the heart of the Viking Age itself. At the heart of the Valkyrie myth stands a singular, powerful figure, Odin, the All-Father. He is the god of wisdom, poetry, and war, a complex and often inscrutable deity obsessed with one overriding goal, preparing for the end of all things. Norse cosmology is not cyclical. It moves towards a final, cataclysmic battle known as Ragnarök, where the gods themselves will face their doom. Odin, through his relentless quest for knowledge, knows this day is coming. He cannot prevent it, but he can assemble an army to fight alongside him when it arrives. This grand cosmic strategy is the very reason for the Valkyries' existence. They are his agents, his battle maidens, dispatched from Asgard to the battlefields of the mortal realm, which they called Midgard. Their mission is precise: to identify the bravest, most skilled warriors at the moment of their passing and bring them to him. The destination for these chosen champions is Valhalla, the Hall of the Slain. It is a warrior's paradise of unimaginable scale. Sagas describe its rafters as spears, its roof tiled with golden shields. Here, the chosen warriors, known as the Einherjar, would spend their days in joyous combat, honing their skills against one another. Each evening, any injuries they sustained would miraculously heal, and they would gather for a magnificent feast. They would drink fine mead, served to them by the very Valkyries who brought them there, their role shifting from battlefield arbiters to honored hostesses. This was not an afterlife of peaceful rest. It was an eternity of preparation. Every duel, every feast, was a drill for the final war. The Valkyries were the instruments of this divine recruitment drive. They were extensions of Odin's will, their eyes his eyes, their judgment his judgment. In carrying out their duties, they were not merely collecting souls. They were building the last line of defense for the gods and the cosmos. Their solemn task was intrinsically linked to the fate of the universe, a vital part of a divine plan set in motion by a god who saw the end of the world on the horizon. While the Valkyries served the will of Odin, ancient texts suggest their role was far more active and terrifying than that of simple messengers. They were not just passive observers waiting for a warrior to fall. They were deeply intertwined with the very fabric of fate itself. This perception grants them a chilling autonomy, blurring the line between servant and master. One of the most potent depictions of this power comes from a poem known as the Dara-Darljod, or the Lay of the Spear. In it, 12 Valkyries are seen before a great battle, not with swords, but at a loom. The imagery that follows is stark and powerful. They are not weaving with wool or linen, but are creating a tapestry of human destiny, using the materials of conflict itself. They weave a great web of war, determining its outcome, deciding who will triumph and who will fall. This vision transforms them from collectors of the worthy into arbiters of who becomes worthy in the first place. Are they choosing the best warriors, or are they making warriors the best by selecting them for a glorious end? The distinction is crucial. It implies that a warrior's fate is not entirely his own. He can fight with all his skill and courage, but in the end, his destiny may rest in the hands of these supernatural women who watch from above. This duality makes the Valkyries profoundly intimidating. They are both a source of ultimate honor and a reminder of inescapable destiny. Their presence could be seen as a blessing, a sign that one's courage had been noticed by the gods. Yet, it was also an omen, a signal that one's time in the mortal world was over. This concept of weaving fate connects them to other powerful female figures in Norse mythology, the Norns, who spin the threads of life for all beings. The Valkyries seem to operate in a similar sphere, but their domain is specific to the battlefield. They are the Norns of war, their loom the clash of shields, their shuttle the speeding arrow. This power elevates them beyond mere soldiers of Odin, casting them as demi-goddesses of destiny, whose choices could change the course of history, one fallen hero at a time. How did a Norse warrior imagine the Valkyrie who would come for him? The sagas and poems provide a vivid and evolving portrait. In the earliest tales, they are fierce and formidable, barely distinguishable from the chaos of battle itself. They are associated with wolves and ravens, creatures that scavenged on the fields of conflict, reinforcing their connection to the grim realities of war. But as the stories were told and retold, their image began to transform. They became figures of awe-inspiring grandeur, clad in gleaming armor, their helmets and mailcoats shining like beacons in the stormy skies. They rode magnificent steeds that could gallop through the air as easily as on land, their hooves striking sparks from the clouds. This image of the armored shield maiden became the quintessential depiction of the Valkyrie, a symbol of both beauty and martial power. In some myths, they possess another form, that of the swan maiden. These tales often involve a mortal hero who comes across Valkyries bathing, their feathered cloaks left on the shore. By seizing a cloak, the hero could bind the Valkyrie to the mortal world, often leading to a tragic romance. These stories gave them names and personalities, transforming them from abstract concepts into characters with their own desires and sorrows. Perhaps the most famous is Brynhildr, a powerful Valkyrie punished by Odin for her disobedience. Her story, intertwined with the hero Sigurd, is a sweeping epic of love, betrayal, and prophecy. Other notable figures include Sigrun, who loved the hero Helgi so deeply that she lamented his honorable passage to Valhalla, and Thrud, the mighty daughter of the god Thor. These narratives added layers of complexity to their character. They were not just divine functionaries, they were beings who could love, defy authority, and suffer consequences. From terrifying spirits of the fray to noble shield maidens and tragic heroines, the image of the Valkyrie was a rich tapestry of Norse ideals, reflecting their reverence for female strength, the allure of the supernatural, and the inseparable link between love and destiny. For the chosen warrior, the end on the battlefield was not a conclusion, but a transition. It was the beginning of a final, glorious journey, guided by the very Valkyrie who had marked him for honor. Together, they would travel from the mortal realm of Midgard to Asgard, the home of the gods. Their path was the Bifrost, a shimmering rainbow bridge guarded by the ever-watchful god Heimdall. To cross it was to leave the world of mortals behind forever and enter the realm of legends. At its end stood the destination, the golden gates of Valhalla. The sight was meant to overwhelm the senses. Valhalla was no mere hall, it was a monument to the warrior spirit. Its vastness was legendary, with over 540 doors, each wide enough for 800 warriors to march through shoulder to shoulder. Inside, the chosen hero, the Einherjar, would be welcomed into an eternal fellowship of the brave. He would join kings, chieftains, and warriors from across the ages, all selected for their exceptional courage. Here, the Valkyries' role transformed once more. Having been battlefield selectors and celestial guides, they now became the honored cupbearers of the Great Hall. They moved among the heroes with grace and authority, filling their drinking horns with an endless supply of heavenly mead from the goat Hydron. Their presence was a constant reminder of the honor the Einherjar had achieved. Life in Valhalla was a perfect warrior's dream. Daily contests of arms, followed by nightly feasts and celebration. But beneath the revelry lay a solemn purpose. Every warrior was being forged into the ultimate soldier for the final confrontation at Ragnarök. The Valkyries were not just serving a feast, they were sustaining an army. The myth of the Valkyries and Valhalla represents the pinnacle of the Norse warrior ethos. It provided a powerful incentive for bravery, promising that a courageous end was not an end at all, but a promotion to the god's own honor guard. This potent image of powerful female arbiters, of a glorious afterlife earned through valor, has echoed through time, a testament to a culture that found ultimate meaning in the face of a heroic struggle. The clash of swords and the cries of the battlefield fade into a distant memory. For the chosen warriors, the Einherjar, a new existence begins, not of rest, but of eternal glory in the golden-roofed hall of Valhalla. Here, in Odin's majestic domain, the Valkyries undergo a profound transformation. The fierce choosers of the slain, who once soared over battlefields cloaked in steel and resolve, now serve as the gracious hostesses of this divine feast. Their armor is exchanged for fine linens, their spears for drinking horns, as they move with an ethereal grace among the long tables, ensuring every hero's cup is ever full. The feast is a spectacle of endless abundance. The mead they serve flows from the udder of the goat Hydron, a river of intoxicating nectar that never runs dry. The warriors feast upon the flesh of the great boar Sehrimnir, who is prepared each evening only to be whole again by morning. This cycle of celebration is the ultimate reward for a life of valor. Yet, it is more than a simple paradise. It is a training ground. Every day, the Einherjar arm themselves, march out to the great fields of Asgard, and engage in glorious combat, only to be miraculously healed by nightfall to feast once more. They are honing their skills for a purpose far greater than personal glory. This entire magnificent enterprise is orchestrated in preparation for a final, cataclysmic battle. Ragnarök. The Valkyries, in their role as cupbearers, are not merely servants. They are custodians of Odin's army, tending to the very warriors they selected. They listen to the tales of earthly heroism, their presence a constant reminder of the honor these men have achieved. They are the bridge between the warriors' mortal past and their divine future, a symbol of the All-Father's promise. Their dual nature is ever present. Beneath the graceful facade of the hostess lies the unyielding spirit of the shieldmaiden, the battle-chooser who understands the true cost of the coming war. They are both nurturers and guardians, ensuring Odin's forces remain strong, sharp, and ready. But this service is predicated on absolute loyalty. The Valkyries' will is meant to be an extension of Odin's own. What happens when that divine instrument develops a will of its own, when a sense of personal justice overrides a god's command? For one Valkyrie, that question will soon demand an answer, shaking the foundations of both Asgard and the mortal world. Among the ranks of Odin's celestial warrior-maidens, one name resonated with a unique and formidable power: Brynhildr. She was more than a mere messenger of the All-Father. She was his favored daughter, a Valkyrie of unparalleled strength, wisdom, and will. Her judgment on the battlefield was considered as sharp as her spear, her resolve as strong as her shield. But it was this very strength of will that would set her on a collision course with the supreme deity she served. The saga of her fall from grace begins with a conflict between two mortal kings, Hjálmgunr and Agnar. Odin had pledged his support to the elder king, Hjálmgunr, and commanded Brynhildr to ensure his victory. Descending to the mortal plane, Brynhildr observed the unfolding battle. She saw the two kings and their armies, but she saw more than just a struggle for land or power. In the young king, Agnar, she recognized a spirit of courage and a spark of greatness that the older, Odin-favored king lacked. To her, the purpose of a Valkyrie was to choose the most worthy, the most valiant, the most heroic. In her judgment, that man was Agnar. In a moment of profound defiance, she made a choice. Disobeying the direct order of the All-Father, she intervened in the conflict and granted the tide-turning victory to Agnar. Hjálmgunr fell, and with him, Odin's decree was shattered. News of this insubordination reached Asgard with the speed of thought. Odin's fury was immense. This was not simply a mistake or a miscalculation. It was a direct challenge to his absolute authority. He, the god of wisdom, war, and kings, had been contradicted by his own creation. Brynhildr was summoned to face his judgment. She stood before him not as a penitent servant, but as a proud warrior who had acted on her own conviction. She argued that she had fulfilled the true spirit of her duty by choosing the more deserving hero. But for Odin, the act was one of unforgivable rebellion. The bond between father and daughter, god and servant, was irrevocably broken. A punishment would be delivered, one designed not only to chastise her, but to strip away the very essence of her being, transforming the immortal shieldmaiden into something she never thought possible: a mortal. Odin's judgment on Brynhildr was as swift as it was severe. For her defiance, she would be stripped of her divinity. The celestial power that coursed through her veins would be extinguished, her immortality forfeited. She would no longer ride the skies or choose heroes for Valhalla. Instead, she was to be cast down, condemned to the one fate she was created to transcend: a mortal life, complete with its frailties and limitations. The Allfather brought her to the remote peak of the mountain Hindarfjall. There, as his sentence reached its climax, he produced a sleep thorn, a simple yet potent instrument of magical slumber. With it, he pricked her, and a profound, unbreakable sleep instantly claimed her. She was now utterly helpless, no longer a formidable shield maiden, but a slumbering figure, vulnerable to the passage of time. Yet, even in his rage, a flicker of paternal sentiment remained. Brynhildr had made one last, desperate plea, that she not be wed to a man who knew the meaning of fear. Odin, honoring this final request, decided to protect her prison. He decreed that she would only be awakened by a hero of supreme courage, one worthy of the Valkyrie she once was. To ensure this, he summoned his divine power and encircled the entire mountaintop with a shimmering, impenetrable wall of magical fire. The flames licked the sky, a fearsome barrier that would repel any coward or man of ordinary spirit. For uncounted years, Brynhildr slept within this fiery ring. She lay upon a stone bier, still clad in her fine armor, a sleeping warrior awaiting a fate she could not control. Her story became a legend whispered in the halls of kings and around the hearths of common folk. The tale of the sleeping shield maiden on the fire mountain. She, who once held the destinies of warriors in her hands, now had her own destiny, held captive by a magical curse and a wall of flame. Her existence was a paradox, a punishment that also served as a challenge, a prison that was also a test for the world's greatest hero. The question lingered in the mists of legend. What manner of man could possibly possess the fortitude to ride through a god's fire and claim the fallen Valkyrie as his prize? While Brynhildr slept, a hero was forged in the mortal world, destined to answer the fiery challenge. He was Sigurd of the Volsung clan, a prince whose lineage was touched by the gods themselves. His legend preceded him. He was the reforger of the legendary sword Gram, its shards made whole again to become the sharpest blade in existence. He was the dragon slayer, the hero who had confronted the fearsome Fafnir, claimed its cursed hoard of gold, and, by tasting the dragon's heart, gained the ability to understand the language of birds. These deeds had already secured his place in the sagas, but his greatest test was yet to come. Word of the enchanted mountain and the sleeping maiden within its ring of fire reached Sigurd. For a hero who had faced a dragon, the mystical flames were not a deterrent, but an irresistible call to glory. Guided by destiny and mounted on his magnificent horse, Grani, a steed descended from Odin's own Sleipnir, he rode towards Hindarfjall. As he approached, the roar of the magical fire filled the air, its heat a palpable force. Yet neither rider nor horse hesitated. Grani, who knew no fear, galloped straight into the shimmering curtain of flame, passing through the divine barrier as if it were mere morning mist. On the other side, the world was silent and still. There, atop the mountain's peak, Sigurd found her. She lay as the legends told, a figure of ethereal beauty in a coat of mail so tight it seemed to have grown to her skin. He gazed upon her, the famed Valkyrie, now a helpless, sleeping mortal. With the point of his sword Gram, he carefully slit the seams of the mail coat, cutting her free from her armored prison. As the last ring of mail was severed, the magic of the sleepthorn was broken. Brynhildr's eyes fluttered open, and after ages of slumber, she awoke. Her first sight was of the hero standing over her, his face illuminated by the magical glow of the firewall he had just conquered. In that instant, two epic destinies converged. They spoke, and she shared with him her divine wisdom, while he pledged to her his mortal love. There, on the isolated mountaintop, they vowed to marry, unaware that the Norns, the weavers of fate, were already spinning a new, more complicated thread for them both. The vow made between Sigurd and Brynhildr on the Fire Mountain was absolute, a sacred promise between the world's greatest hero and the fallen Valkyrie. Sigurd gave her a ring from the dragon's hoard as a token of their betrothal before continuing his journeys, promising to return. His path, however, led him to the court of the Giukings, the Burgundian kings. There, his fame, valor, and immense treasure made him a prize of unimaginable value. The queen of the court, Grimhild, a woman versed in the subtle arts of sorcery, saw in Sigurd the perfect husband for her daughter, the beautiful Gudrun. To achieve her goal, Grimhild resorted to powerful magic. She brewed a potion of forgetfulness, a draught that could wipe clean the memory of even the most sacred vow. During a grand feast, she offered the enchanted drink to Sigurd. Upon drinking it, the memory of Brynhildr, the Ring of Fire, and their pledge of love vanished from his mind completely. His heart, now an empty slate, was soon captured by Gudrun, and under the influence of the court's designs, he married her. The first stage of the betrayal was complete, but a more terrible act was to follow. Grimhild's ambition extended to her son, King Gunnar, who now desired the legendary Brynhildr for himself. But Gunnar lacked the courage to cross the Ring of Fire. Seeing this, Grimhild devised a cunning and cruel plan. She convinced Sigurd, now her loyal son-in-law, to aid his new brother. Using his shape-shifting abilities, or a magical disguise, Sigurd took on the form of Gunnar. Once more, he rode the fearless Grani through the flames of Hindarfjall. Brynhildr, seeing the man she believed to be Gunnar conquer the fire, agreed to marry him, fulfilling the terms of her awakening. During the 3 nights he stayed with her in Gunnar's guise, Sigurd placed his bare sword between them in the bed, a symbol of honor, and took from her finger the very ring, Andvaranaut, that he himself had given her in his true form. He then returned to court, restored Gunnar to his own shape, and presented him with his hard-won bride. The stage was now set for a tragedy of monumental proportions, as Brynhildr, the betrayed Valkyrie, was about to come face to face with the man she truly loved, now the husband of another woman. In the thunderous chaos of a Norse battlefield, the first act of war was not a sword strike, but a song. It was the song of the spear, a piercing note that soared over the heads of the enemy army. This single, symbolic cast was a dedication, a promise to the god Odin that the field would yield a bountiful harvest of valiant souls for his hall, Valhalla. And the reapers of that harvest, the conductors of this brutal symphony, were the Valkyries. Their presence was inextricably linked to this ritual. They were not merely passive observers waiting for the conflict to end. They were active participants, their will and purpose woven into the very fabric of the fight. Nowhere is this role more vividly, or more starkly, portrayed than in a chilling poem from the Icelandic Njal saga, known as Daradarljod, or the Song of the Spear. The poem describes a man who peers through a crack in a wall and witnesses a truly awesome sight. 12 Valkyries gathered around a loom. But this is no ordinary loom for weaving cloth. The poem describes them weaving a great tapestry of war, a grim pattern that decides the fate of an impending battle. The components of their loom are the tools of conflict. Their threads are the destinies of men. They chant as they work, naming themselves and declaring their power to choose who will prevail and who will fall. This powerful metaphor elevates them beyond simple psychopomps or guides for spirits. They are weavers of destiny, their hands determining the outcome before the first shield wall even clashes. They are the arbiters of victory, their song a decree of fate. This connection to the spear, Odin's favored weapon, is embedded in their very names. Names like Geirskogul, which can be interpreted as spear skogul, and Gundul, wandwielder, a poetic term for a spear, point directly to their martial function. They are extensions of Odin's will, the divine force that directs the point of the spear. When a chieftain cast his weapon over the enemy, he was invoking these very spirits, calling on them to guide the fortunes of the fight and to select the best of the warriors for the honor that awaited. The spear was more than metal and wood. It was a conduit to the divine, a signal to the sky that a great contest was underway. The song of that spear was the opening note in a drama of courage and consequence, a prelude to the Valkyries' ride. For centuries, the stories of the Valkyries existed only in the wind, in the cadence of a storyteller's voice around a flickering fire. They were fluid, changing with each telling, part of a vast oral tradition. But in the cold, quiet scriptoriums of medieval Iceland, a profound transformation occurred. Myth became manuscript. Scribes, working by candlelight, painstakingly committed these ancient verses to vellum, preserving them for eternity. The most important of these collections, our primary window into the lost world of Norse mythology, is the poetic Edda, contained within a manuscript known as the Codex Regius. Discovered in a farmhouse in the 17th century, this humble leather-bound book is a priceless treasure. Within its pages, the Valkyries step out of the fog of folklore and are given names, roles, and even personalities. In the epic poem Völuspá, the prophecy of the seeress, they are listed as a formidable host, Odin's maidens who are ready to ride over the earth. Here, they are presented as a collective force, an essential part of the divine cosmic order. Another poem, Grimnismal, or The Lay of Grimnir, offers a more intimate glimpse into their function. Odin, in disguise, lists the names of 13 Valkyries, whose duty it is to serve ale to the Einherjar, the chosen champions in Valhalla. This passage highlights their dual nature. They are not only fierce arbiters of conflict, but also gracious hostesses, bestowing reward and honor in the afterlife. Yet, it is in the heroic lays, particularly those concerning the hero Helgi, that the Valkyries' characters are most deeply explored. Here, they are no longer just abstract agents of a god. The Valkyrie Sigrun is a central character, a princess who defies her father to love the mortal hero Helgi. She rides with him, protects him in battle, and mourns him with a passion that transcends the boundary between the divine and the mortal. This is a significant evolution. The Valkyrie is now a figure of romance and agency, capable of making her own choices, driven by love and loyalty. These Eddic poems, written down long after the Viking Age had passed and Christianity had taken root, represent a filter. They organize and systematize the old beliefs, but in doing so, they also reshape them, creating complex, sometimes contradictory portraits of these powerful women. They are the essential source, the foundation upon which all future interpretations would be built, a fragile bridge of ink and parchment connecting us to a forgotten faith. Beyond the battlefield and the halls of Valhalla, the Valkyrie inhabits another, more mysterious domain, the world of folklore and transformation. Her identity is not fixed, it blurs at the edges, merging with other powerful female figures of myth, most notably the enigmatic Swan Maiden. This connection reveals a deeper, more primal aspect of her nature, one tied to the wildness of the natural world and the power of shape-shifting. A recurring motif in folklore across Northern Europe tells of a mortal man who discovers beautiful women bathing in a secluded lake, their cloaks of swan feathers lying on the shore. By taking one of the cloaks, he can bind the Swan Maiden to the human world. This exact story appears in the poetic Edda, in the poem Völundarkvida, the Lay of Völund. 3 brothers come across 3 Valkyries spinning flax by a lake, their swan guises nearby. The brothers take them as wives, and they live together for several years. But the Valkyries are beings of 2 worlds. Their longing for their former life, for the freedom of the sky and the call of battle, eventually becomes too strong. They reclaim their feathered forms and fly away, leaving their mortal husbands behind. The swan itself is a potent symbol, elegant and beautiful, yet wild and migratory, at home in the water, on the land, and in the air. This perfectly mirrors the Valkyrie's liminal state, her ability to traverse all realms, from the mortal world to the divine. This power of transformation connects the Valkyrie to the ancient Norse concept of the fylgja, a guardian spirit, often in animal form, that accompanies a person or a family line. It is possible that the Valkyrie was seen as a kind of warrior's fylgja, a supernatural double whose fate was tied to his own. This fluidity also complicates the line between the divine Valkyrie and the human shieldmaiden. Figures like Brynhildr embody this ambiguity. In some tales, she is a supernatural being punished by Odin with mortality. In others, she is a human princess with the strength and spirit of a Valkyrie. Did the myths of divine warrior women inspire real women to take up arms, or were the legends of shield maidens the seed from which the Valkyrie myth grew? The truth is likely a complex interplay of both. This shape-shifting identity, from divine chooser to swan, from battle spirit to mortal lover, is the key to her enduring power. She is not a single, simple entity, but a multifaceted being who embodies the mysterious connection between the human, the natural, and the divine. In 1870, an audience in Munich experienced a musical storm that would forever change the world's perception of the Valkyrie. The thundering brass, swirling strings, and triumphant war cry of Richard Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries was more than just music. It was a cultural event. It took the ancient Norse myth and amplified it into a spectacle of high drama and raw emotional power, cementing a new and indelible image of the Valkyrie in the modern imagination. The piece is the prelude to Act 3 of Die Walküre, The Valkyrie, the second of 4 massive operas that constitute his epic cycle, Der Ring des Nibelungen. Wagner was not merely adapting the myths, he was forging them into a new, cohesive, and deeply personal saga. His Valkyries are 9 warrior sisters, daughters of the chief god Wotan. While they retain their function of carrying fallen heroes from the battlefield, Wagner gives them personalities, rivalries, and a collective, formidable presence. At the center of this drama is his greatest creation, the Valkyrie Brunhilde. She is Wagner's ideal, fierce, proud, but also possessing a profound capacity for compassion. Her story is one of rebellion born from love. Commanded by her father to ensure the downfall of the hero Siegmund, Brunhilde is moved by his courage and his love for the woman Sieglinde. In a pivotal moment of defiance, she chooses to protect the mortal hero, directly disobeying a divine command. This single act of empathy transforms her from a mere agent of a god into a true dramatic heroine, setting in motion a chain of events that will shake the foundations of the divine world. Visually, Wagner's production, and those that followed, created a powerful but historically inaccurate archetype. The iconic horned or winged helmet, the gleaming breastplates, and the spears are a product of 19th century romantic stage design, yet they have become inseparable from the Valkyrie. The ride itself is a masterpiece of stagecraft. The curtain rises on a mountain peak amidst a raging storm, where Brunhilde's 8 sisters arrive on horseback, their triumphant cries of Hojotoho punctuating the orchestral tempest. They greet each other, bearing champions on their saddles. It is a scene of immense energy and grandeur. Wagner's genius was to take the fragmented and often stark figures of the Eddas and infuse them with the psychological depth and emotional turmoil of 19th century opera. He gave the Valkyrie a powerful voice and a tragic destiny, ensuring her ride would thunder on for generations to come. As the 19th century progressed, the rediscovery of Norse mythology resonated deeply with the spirit of Romanticism and the rise of nationalism across Northern Europe. Artists, writers, and thinkers searching for a unique cultural identity rooted in an epic past turned to the Viking Age. In this fertile ground, the Valkyrie was transformed once more. She shed some of her ancient ferocity and was reborn as a figure of idealized beauty, national pride, and ethereal grace, a fierce angel of the Nordic spirit. Painters of the national romantic movement were instrumental in creating this new image. The Norwegian artist Peter Nicolai Arbo, in works like The Wild Hunt of Odin and his definitive Valkyrie, depicted her not as a grim weaver of fate, but as a luminous, beautiful warrior maiden soaring through storm clouds on a powerful steed. Her armor gleams, her golden hair streams behind her, and her expression is one of noble purpose. This was a Valkyrie reimagined for a new era. She was less a terrifying arbiter of the battlefield and more a glorious guide, a celestial being who rewarded national heroes with an honorable afterlife. The focus shifted from her role in determining the outcome of a conflict to her role in bestowing glory after it. This romanticized figure became a potent symbol in nationalist ideologies. For Germany, Scandinavia, and other nations seeking to define themselves against the classical traditions of Southern Europe, the Valkyrie represented a pure, strong, and heroic heritage. She was the embodiment of the nation's soul, a symbol of martial valor and feminine strength, calling the sons of the fatherland to greatness and sacrifice. Poets and authors wove this idealized figure into their works, further cementing her new identity in the popular consciousness. In this process, the more complex and dangerous aspects of her Epic origins were often smoothed away. The tragic consequences of her affairs with mortals, her defiance of the gods, and her connection to the raw chaos of battle were downplayed in favor of a more palatable, inspirational archetype. This evolution marks a crucial stage in her long journey through cultural history. From a shadowy spirit of conflict, she had become a named character in medieval manuscripts, a conflicted heroine on the operatic stage, and now, a radiant icon of national identity. Each era saw in her what it needed to see: a decider of fate, a romantic lead, a symbol of ancestral glory. This remarkable adaptability ensured that the Valkyrie would not remain a relic of the past, but would continue to ride into the future, ready to be reinvented once again. The modern imagination conjures a very specific image of the Valkyrie, a statuesque woman in gleaming, impractical armor, with a horned helmet on her head and a magnificent pair of feathered wings on her back. She is an angel of the battlefield, a beautiful guide for fallen heroes. This vision, while powerful, is a collage of historical inaccuracies and artistic liberties, assembled centuries after the last Viking ship returned to its fjord. The most persistent myth is the horned helmet. There is no archaeological or historical evidence to suggest that Viking-era warriors, male or female, wore horned helmets into battle. Such adornments would be a dangerous liability, easily caught by an opponent's weapon. This iconic headwear was largely an invention of the 19th century, popularized by costume designer Carl Emil Doppler for Richard Wagner's epic opera cycle, Der Ring des Nibelungen. It was a theatrical flourish, designed to evoke a sense of primal grandeur for the stage, but it has little basis in the reality of the Norse world. Similarly, the idea of winged Valkyries is a later embellishment. The poetic Eddas and sagas describe them riding fearsome steeds through the sky, their passage causing the northern lights to flash across the heavens. They were figures of the storm, their power tied to the elemental forces of nature, not the delicate grace of angelic wings. This addition likely stems from a later syncretism with Christian iconography, blending the Norse chooser of the slain with the more familiar image of a heavenly messenger. Perhaps the greatest misconception is that the Valkyries were purely benevolent guides. This romanticized view sanitizes their far more formidable and terrifying aspects. In older poems, they are not just collectors of the worthy, they are active and sometimes grim arbiters of fate. In the poem Daradarljod, Valkyries are depicted as weavers, creating the tapestry of a coming battle. Their loom is constructed from the grim implements of war, where the threads of destiny were woven to decide the fate of armies. They were forces of nature, as capable of inciting conflict as they were of rewarding its participants. To understand the true Valkyrie, we must look past the opera stage and the fantasy art. We must strip away the horns, the wings, and the simplified morality. In doing so, we uncover a figure far more complex, powerful, and resonant. But if the Valkyrie is not simply a winged angel of the battlefield, what is she? She is the embodiment of a powerful, ancient archetype, the female warrior. The archetype of the female warrior is a powerful and recurring theme in human mythology, a potent symbol of strength, sovereignty, and the defiance of convention. Long before the sagas were written down, cultures across the globe told stories of women who wielded both political and martial power. The Valkyrie stands as one of the most compelling examples of this archetype, but she is not alone. She shares a spiritual lineage with the Amazons of Greek legend, fierce fighters who governed their own society, with the Celtic queen Boudica, who led a massive uprising against Roman forces, and with the Hindu goddess Durga, a divine protector who rides a lion into battle against cosmic threats. What unites these figures is their embodiment of agency and authority in domains typically reserved for men. The Valkyrie, however, possesses a unique dimension that sets her apart. Her power is not solely defined by her skill with a spear or shield. Her very name, Chooser of the Slain, points to her primary function, a role of judgment and discernment. She is a figure of immense wisdom, capable of looking into the heart of a warrior at the moment of his greatest trial and deeming him worthy of a glorious afterlife. This elevates her from a mere combatant to a sacred arbiter, a direct link between the mortal world of strife and the divine plane of the gods. She represents the idea that true strength is not just physical prowess, but also the wisdom to recognize it in others. Psychologically, the Valkyrie archetype challenges the simple binary of the feminine as purely a force of creation and life-giving, and the masculine as a force of destruction. She occupies a liminal space, embodying both. She is present at the moment of a warrior's end, yet she is also the agent of his rebirth into a new, honored existence in Valhalla. She is a figure of the threshold, moving between the worlds of the living and the honored spirits, between the chaos of the battlefield and the order of Odin's hall. Her existence suggests a more holistic understanding of power, where fierceness and nurturing, judgment and guidance can coexist within a single, formidable being. The archetype is potent, a symbol of female strength that resonates through the ages. But did this myth have a basis in reality? Did warrior women, known as shieldmaidens, truly charge into the fray with shield and sword? The line between Norse myth and history has always been tantalizingly thin. For centuries, the figure of the shieldmaiden, a woman who took up arms and fought alongside men, was confined to the realm of legend. The sagas are filled with their tales, figures like Hervor in the saga of Hervor and Heidrek, who claims her father's cursed sword and leads a life of raiding, or Brynhild, the legendary Valkyrie, who is also a mortal princess and warrior. The Danish historian Saxo Grammaticus, writing in the 12th century, described a contingent of female warriors fighting for the Danes at the historic Battle of Bråvalla. For a long time, these accounts were dismissed by historians as poetic fancy, literary devices meant to create exceptional female characters rather than reflect a historical reality. The argument was simple. There was no hard, physical evidence. Then, in 1878, a spectacular Viking-era grave was unearthed in the trading town of Birka, Sweden. Designated BJ 581, it was clearly the tomb of a high-ranking military individual. The occupant was buried with a stunning array of weapons: a sword, an axe, a spear, armor-piercing arrows, and 2 shields. Also included were 2 horses, and, most tellingly, a full set of gaming pieces, suggesting a mind well-versed in strategy and tactics. For more than a century, the inhabitant of this tomb was assumed to be a man, a powerful Viking chieftain. But persistent questions about the skeleton's morphology led to a groundbreaking study. In 2017, a team of archaeologists and geneticists published their findings. DNA analysis performed on the bones confirmed unequivocally that this high-status warrior was biologically female. The revelation sent shockwaves through the historical community. The Birka warrior woman was not a myth, she was real. Naturally, the discovery ignited intense debate. Some scholars suggested the weapons could have been symbolic, heirlooms from a male relative buried with a woman of high status. However, proponents of the warrior interpretation point to the completeness and practicality of the arsenal. These were not ceremonial objects, they were the tools of a professional soldier. The inclusion of the gaming set further strengthens the argument that she was not just a fighter, but a leader, a strategist responsible for directing others in battle. The woman of Birka offers compelling proof that the shield maiden was more than just a story. And if she existed in the past, her spirit certainly lives on, powerfully reimagined in our modern world. While the historical shield maiden was being rediscovered in the earth of Birka, her mythological counterpart, the Valkyrie, was conquering a new realm, modern popular culture. No single person did more to shape this modern image than the German composer Richard Wagner. His monumental 19th-century opera cycle, Der Ring des Nibelungen, introduced the world to Brunhilde and her 8 sisters. The most famous piece from this work, The Ride of the Valkyries, became an instant cultural phenomenon. Its thundering, dramatic composition became the definitive soundtrack for epic conflict, a piece of musical shorthand used in countless films, advertisements, and television shows to evoke a sense of immense power and impending battle. Wagner's vision, complete with the famously inaccurate horned helmets, seared a romantic and theatrical image of the Valkyrie into the global consciousness. From the opera stage, the Valkyrie charged into the pages of comic books. In 1970, Marvel Comics introduced their own version of the character, a superheroine who fought alongside Thor and the Avengers. This interpretation distilled the Valkyrie's essence into a heroic archetype, emphasizing her martial prowess, her unwavering sense of justice, and her Asgardian nobility. She became a symbol of female power for a new generation, trading the ambiguity of the ancient myths for the clear-cut morality of the superhero genre. This heroic image has proven incredibly durable, influencing her portrayal in blockbuster films and television series, making her a recognizable figure to millions who may have never read the Poetic Edda. The digital age provided yet another battlefield for the Valkyrie to conquer. In the world of video games, she appears in countless forms. She is a powerful character class, a summoned ally, a fearsome boss opponent, or a central figure in narratives steeped in Norse mythology. Games like God of War re-envision them as incredibly formidable and tragic figures, while others use their likeness to signify elite warrior status. In this interactive medium, players don't just watch the Valkyrie, they can aspire to be her, to wield her power and embody her spirit of valor. From Wagner's soaring music to the vibrant panels of a comic book and the immersive worlds of video games, the Valkyrie has proven to be an endlessly adaptable and resilient icon. She is constantly being reinterpreted, a testament to her enduring appeal as a symbol of strength, choice, and untamed spirit. But why does this ancient figure still hold such sway over our imagination? What is the secret to her enduring call? The Valkyrie endures not merely as a relic of a forgotten faith, but as a vibrant and living idea. Her persistence in our culture speaks to a deep and resonant appeal that transcends time and geography. Part of this appeal lies in the very nature of the Norse worldview from which she was born. It was not a world of passive acceptance, but one of active, often defiant, engagement with destiny. In these stories, even the gods are not omnipotent. They too have a fate, a final battle at Ragnarök, which they must face with courage. The Valkyries are the ultimate expression of this agency. They are not passive messengers of a divine will. They are shapers of it, their choices on the battlefield directly influencing the composition of Odin's great army. This celebration of agency and proactive courage resonates deeply in a modern era that prizes self-determination and individual achievement. Furthermore, the promise the Valkyrie offers is unique. Valhalla is not a paradise of tranquil, eternal rest. It is a celestial training ground where the chosen warriors, the Einherjar, feast and fight each day, honing their skills for the final, cataclysmic battle. This concept of the afterlife glorifies struggle, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. It suggests that a life of meaning is not one devoid of conflict, but one in which challenges are met with an indomitable spirit. The Valkyrie's selection is not a reward for piety, but a recognition of valor and a refusal to yield. This ethos of honorable striving continues to inspire, from the sports arena to the corporate boardroom. The Valkyrie also represents a profound connection to the raw, elemental forces of the world. She rides the storm, her cry is the howling wind, and her passage is the flashing aurora. In an increasingly digital and disconnected world, this primal imagery evokes a powerful sense of longing for a more direct and authentic relationship with the natural world. At her core, however, the Valkyrie's most enduring power is that of choice. In a world that often feels chaotic and overwhelming, she represents clarity and purpose. She embodies the wisdom of discernment, the ability to look upon the chaos of the fray and recognize true worth. She reminds us that our actions matter, that our character is forged in moments of trial, and that the choices we make define our legacy. The Valkyrie's call is not a summons to a bygone age, but a timeless invitation. It is the call to live with courage, to face our challenges with honor, and to understand that in the great saga of life, we are all choosers of our own destiny. The gates of Valhalla may be a legend, but the spirit of the Valkyrie endures within us all.